Thank you for joining Dr. James, Rini, and I, the Curiosity Conduit, for a look behind the curtain of letting destiny deliver. With 47 years of experience as a practicing psychotherapist, Dr. Rini brings profound insight into the dimensions of consciousness. I bring my own lens as a retired law enforcement officer now immersed in the study of psychology. Together, we invite you into a dialogue where destiny meets awareness and curiosity leads the way.
Today, we will discuss the defensive ego. This conversation may lead to feelings of inspiration and curiosity, and it can also create some inner movement. That's all welcome. Life will reveal your destiny through all opportunities you keep yourself available for. So allow yourself to stay open and let's see what destiny delivers.
Can we start off with the first quote? One dominant aspect of the ego's personality is to be defensive. After all, its job is to defend consciousness from infectious information. So, when I was trying to think about this on breaking it down, would it be accurate to say that its function is to protect consciousness by resisting, avoiding, or deflecting information perceived as foreign, threatening, or uncomfortable?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, the ego is the information police, and it decides what it lets in and what it keeps out. The ego is there basically to help us differentiate fantasy from reality. And to a greater extent, it is also there to decide what information it allows in and what information it allows us to share. And because of that, it then becomes very picky as to the information that it allows in particular. And a lot of times, the things we need to hear are things we're not comfortable hearing.
Okay, I mean, that definitely makes sense. What would be an example that of, for instance, clients that you see come through of this, resisting and avoiding perceived foreign information?
Well, I'll take it one step further. You could say that we are all resistant to information that is foreign to it. It's whether or not we are aware that we're being resistant to the information.
So, all good information, and it ties into this next quote. Those who have an ego that is afraid to love or be loved for fear of being hurt or seen as weak are putting themselves in harm's way. Without love, the ego develops an I don't care attitude towards life. Not caring serves only to perpetuate an emptiness that no amount of success, greed, revenge, or envy can fill. So, at one point in the past, we talked about the never ending story. I love the story. We both like the nothing in this story. And I really thought of it here, that I don't care. That this is in this story, the never ending is from the 80s for anybody listening who does not know what this is. And it's basically when adults and children start to lose imagination, right? And it's crumbling this world. And I just find it where it creates this nothing. The nothing is that I don't care. It mirrors hopelessness, depression, emotional numbness, and just loss of connection to self. Would you think that would be correct in discussing this quote?
Yes.
Thank you.
But let me say this in addition to that.
Okay.
I love the way you've connected the never ending story and the meaning that you took from that people have stopped using their imagination. Because I think people have stopped using their imagination because we don't have to imagine things anymore.
Right. You don't have to think. Everything's done for you.
Right. And how it creates that emptiness, connecting that nothingness that's created by the lack of imagination. And then I don't care attitude does that too, because that's a way of protecting yourself from caring, is to not care. And that creates a nothingness as well. And what you do with that is you take all meaning and purpose out of life, which is one of the very important pathways.
Right. Because each individual is what gives meaning and purpose to life, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
No, it makes me think of a quote that most people don't understand by Fritz Perls. Meaning is a creative act in the here and now.
yes.
So yes, your uniqueness, your individuality is creative. It does create something that no one else can create.
Right. Because
Unless you're mimicking and copying everybody, which
and then what?
and then you lose your creativity and your individuality because you're just copying.
That's right.
What about copying and pasting?
What about copying and pasting?
Is that okay? Where I take a copy, I put part of this and then something over here, and I add it to my narrative, and then something over here. I'm not copying just one thing, I'm taking bits and pieces from different areas, and which makes it something like you take hydrogen and oxygen, you put them together and make water. It makes something completely different.
I feel
So
like this
that's
is a
kind
trick
of copy.
question. I feel like it's a trick question because I copy and paste the quotes from looking I copy and pasted quotes from your book.
Yeah, but we're talking about one's identity and
Oh,
how they see themselves.
no, it's not okay to copy and
But
paste.
it is because think of a lot of learning is observational learning.
This is true. There is a lot that I take from you,
Yeah.
so that is true.
But then you make it your own, and that's kind of what I'm
Yes.
saying about copying and pasting, but then you make it your own.
Okay. Have a copy and then paste what is your own. That in between stage, you figure out what is your own and then paste it. How about that? Can you do that?
Well, no, there's 26 letters in the alphabet, but you can make all kinds of words from those same letters. So copy and paste, again, because you can take common elements like hydrogen and oxygen, put them together, and they form something completely different. Just as I've learned various theorists and had copied them in such a way that they have nurtured who I am, not just a copy of who they are.
But I want to dive a little bit more into the I don't care and fear of being hurt.
Yeah.
This is super prevalent, right? So many people feel this way. I don't need anybody, which is not true, or I don't care. And then the I don't care transfers everywhere. It's not just where they want the I don't care, it goes across everywhere in their life and it's dangerous. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think people think it solves their problem.
Well, because it feels better. They don't have to feel that pain of the I don't care.
True, but in not caring, then they become careless.
That's true. Become careless, reckless, and not even recognize their actions because they're just so distant from their awareness of themselves that it just transfers everywhere and it can actually get them in trouble. Whether it's relationships, right? In relationships as well.
Well, I think a better avenue is to utilize caring and all the different emotions it brings. If nothing else, it can give you empathy, understanding how someone feels when they get hurt or when they get betrayed, so that you're less likely to do that to somebody else. The absence of caring allows you freedom to do whatever you want because there are, for you, no consequences because you don't care. But there are consequences for everybody else.
Who are experiencing that person in that state.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't think about that portion. They're just thinking of themselves and how they feel, and they can't stand the feelings of caring too much. "Oh, I care too much." I've heard this so much. Like, my problem is I care too much.
We'll learn how to care a little less, not caring at all.
But there needs to be a balance to that.
Exactly.
And when there is a balance to that, that's when you do care a little less. And to me, I think their focus is going back to that first pathway inward, having that awareness himself. And you're able to balance it with that because it's not just caring less, it's caring differently in different areas, I would say. All right, moving on.
If the ego does not know the self, it will find it more and more difficult to make healthy judgments about good and bad, right and wrong, true and false. If the ego is dominating consciousness, it will do so at the expense of the self. If the ego is dominating consciousness, it will do so at the expense of self-development.
Okay. So I guess it's important to have the relationship between, right, the conscious and unconscious mind, the ego and the self, right? Because they are the bosses here. So I guess that's an example of the second pathway.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm so glad you're awake here.
Introduce me to a yes mate.
Okay. Well, there's a reason I've got you in a yes set now, so we're gonna have a real question coming up soon. Just kidding. But what are your thoughts about that? Specifically on the self-development portion.
Yeah. Okay. Again, the ego decides what it accepts and what it rejects in terms of information. And if it isn't able to host and honor the self, which is who we authentically are, it is abandoning us. And in abandoning us, it then lives a life that's an illusion, it's a pretense. And that's why it leaves us with such great emptiness that no amount of success, greed, or revenge will ever fill.
And it's that emptiness, that loneliness, right? And it is literally the feeling of it being abandoned when you are feeling lonely, right?
Right, but you run from that by filling it with the need for success or revenge
Or just anything.
or anything, yes, any
Any
obsession,
and that's when it goes into the sabotage and things to avoid.
and addictions.
Addiction. Oh, 100%. And what are some common everyday behaviors that you see from this other than just saying blanketly addictions?
The best answer I can give you is by saying what it reduces people's mentality is a middle school mentality. So
Stop
people
it.
never leave middle school.
I literally was just talking about this because some of the most lonely people on earth are people over 65 who don't have somebody in their life. I went with my mother to the senior center and took her there. We just wanted to see what was available, what could we do, get her involved in things, how can we give back, or whatever. One table, all guys. All the rest of the table is girls. And I was like, "What is happening here? Are we in middle school?" They were talking about how this bus to get people there wasn't gonna be available, and so they're just saying, "Hey, there's lots of drivers here. Somebody pick somebody up if you wanna come," 'cause they do bingo, which I'm like, "I'm in." I saw everything in senior center. I'm like, "Is this my center? Like, I wanna go do this stuff." Anyway, so and his one guy raises his hand. He's well put together, has Purple Heart veterans hat on and stuff like that, and he's like, "Well, I'm just here for bingo, and, but if anybody needs a ride, I'll come pick you up." And so the lady making announcements like, "Hey, ladies, we got a good looking guy here willing to pick people up." Now this smaller gentleman who seemed very quiet was like, "Hey, I'll pick somebody up too." He's like, he's like, "I'll take some ladies in my car." I was dying laughing, but I was like, "This is just like middle school." I was literally just went through this just the other day, so it's true. It's so true. Sorry.
No, no, don't be.
Go ahead. All right, moving on to the next quote. The "I don't care" attitude, even though it may protect us from pain, does have a price. That price being an ability to develop a sense of purpose and meaning. So we kind of talked about this more, but this does go into the third pathway under awareness for purpose and meaning. So if you have this "I don't care" attitude, yeah, it can protect us short term, but how does it hurt us long term?
Well, why do we need to care in the first place?
To be able to have that purpose, meaning, connection to self.
Well, I think if we were more caring, we'd be more civilized. So long term, not caring is the end of civilization.
Oof, so true.
And day to day experiences are just the micro movements of that.
Well, so then what anybody has to do is step outside their door and look around and see the example of it. Go to the grocery store, stand there for a minute, look around, you're going to see an example of it. Turn on the news, turn on the TV, you're going to see examples of this then. That's what I think. A whole bunch of people of "I don't care" attitude and a fake, just fake persona in front of them, just fake everything fake and couldn't be further away from their self. But it's true. I mean, it's true. The ego must not be afraid to embrace the self with its need for growth and development, or its human need to love and be loved, to respect and be respected, to understand and be understood, to have dignity and achieve integrity. If the ego abandons these higher instincts, it will trap itself in a superficial world that leads only to impatience, irritability, indecision, and insecurity. I'm just going to stop right there. And that's literally what I was just describing, everything that's out in the world right now when you're looking. So if you don't want this, recognize that portion of the defensive ego that's within you, right?
Well, again, you have to appreciate that I wrote this some 35 years ago. And I say that because it was really just before social media came about. And as I listen to this, I'm thinking social media has removed us even further from this, from
Yes.
the need for growth and development, to love or be loved, to respect or be respected. So we're already there. You said if the ego abandons these higher instincts, it will trap itself. And we have already trapped ourselves in a superficial world that's led to impatience, irritability, indecision, and insecurity. We're already there. Now, what I would say about the ego, you see, the need for growth and development are weaker needs. They're much milder. The need for food, water, sleep, sex, they're much stronger. And the ego is much more likely to get invested in them, especially when it doesn't know there's anything better. And in today's age, people don't know that there are better things because they're so far, they don't even know they don't know. They're so far removed. This is all they know. And it's called social media. So for them, this is being social. But no, it's already got us to the place where we don't have a need to be respected or respect, to love or be loved, to understand or be understood, or to have dignity and integrity. We certainly are not there. We've already achieved this perilous point in life. Can we come back from it? Stay tuned.
I like that very much. Thank you for joining Dr. Rini and I on this journey behind the curtain of letting destiny deliver. Join us next time as we will discuss the healthy ego. Remember to subscribe and like, and questions or comments are welcome below. Now ask yourself, what part of your life might destiny be trying to speak through right now? Keep exploring, stay curious, and remember, destiny isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. Until next time, be well.